Hey, fourth graders, it's Mrs. Ramsey. I am here today to help you with your unspoken plot. Um, if you remember, back when we wrote our fiction stories, we came up with our plot using this somebody wanted but so then plot organizer. So we're going to do this for our story Unspoken. And if you remember when we created our plots for our fiction stories, they were very, very basic. We did not include all the detail that we wanted in our stories. This was just to make sure that we had our problem and solution very clearly established. So I'm going to give an example of Henry's Freedom Box, which we just did a read aloud last week. So if you remember, this is a story about Henry Brown. So I'm going to go ahead and just type that with who is the story about? It's about Henry Brown. And my next step is, what did Henry Brown want? What did he want to do? And if you remember in the story, Henry wanted to be freed by his owner, who was very ill. If you can remember the page of him as a little boy with his mom standing by his owner's bedside, and that was his one want, to be freed. But what happened? What happened to poor Henry in that moment? Well, the owner decides to send Henry to live with his son because Henry is such a hard worker. And you can remember how Henry was not happy about that. He nodded, but he didn't say thank you to his owner because that would have been a lie. So this is the problem. The owner decides to send Henry to live with his son because Henry's such a hard worker. So what does Henry do? Well, this is kind of where it got a little tricky, but when Henry's wife and children were sold at the slave market, Henry decides to mail himself to a place where there are no slaves. I'm not going to get into the detail of how he did this. All I'm just saying is, what did he try to do? And what he tried to do was mail himself in a crate. So it's very simple just in this plot. I'm not giving all the detail. I've lost my little line here. How was the problem solved? Well, after a horrible, horrible way of traveling, and we heard everything that Henry had to go through, Henry ultimately arrives in Philadelphia. So how was the problem solved? Henry was delivered to friends in Philadelphia, where he celebrated his first day of freedom. Try to move all this on one page so you can see. So, how was the problem solved? Henry was delivered to friends in Philadelphia where he celebrated his first day of freedom. Now, this is just the very basic plot of the story. The story had a lot more information and details that went along with it, and that's what made it a great story. Right now, this is just a basic summary, really, of what happened in the story. So this is all we want you to complete today. Later in the week, tomorrow, we'll begin to add some detail and try and write the story out as we think it should be written.